man.
The candidate most likable is somehow not electable. That's the story from the editorial board. We'd like to save the world when it's under attack, but how you gonna pay for that? Ow! When people want proof that the world ain't flat, we'll just give them their money back. Oh yeah!
Come on, man.
We heard what you wanna do. Now we'll tell you what's best for you. That's the story from the editorial board. A little tip for the working man. Your employers are all our friends. That's the story from the editorial board. That's the story from the editorial board. We'd like to save the world when it's under attack, but how you gonna pay for that? Ow! When people want proof that the world ain't flat, we'll just give them their money back. Oh yeah! That's the story from the editorial board. That's the story from the editorial board. That's the story from the editorial board. That's the story from the editorial board.
I won't just turn the car around. I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to kick you out, and I'm going to make you walk home.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ben, you're there, right?
I am here.
All right, awesome.
I am woman.
Oh, really?
Your number is too big to ignore. Dude, I forget the rest of the words.
Well, you learn something new every day. You are woman.
By the way, Dee, did I tell you I have a new cell phone?
Yes. Yeah. You've upgraded.
Oh, yes. I just want to tell you that every day.
How's that
'cause I
going,
love
by the
you.
way? How is life in the 21st century?
Dee, I gotta admit, I miss my old phone. I liked it, and the phone liked me too.
Well, hang in
we had
there.
like a nice little relationship.
I say by October, you're going to love it. All right.
All right, okay, if you say so.
Radio Doogie, what's up, man? Nice to have you join us. Jim and Brianna, they're all waiting for the show, so let's get it on and popping here. Your Ben Joravsky show for Thursday, September 3rd, is just moments away. But let's thank these unions for sponsoring our podcast. Thanks, unions. Unions like the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 150, and our dear friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Ben, we have a song of the day request.
Oh, okay. All right. Hold on, let me get my water out.
Oh, get that water out now. We gotta.
Did I tell you, Dee, that that's the story of the editorial board? Wow, wow, wow. And what would that song be, young man?
Your song of the day comes from Frank. What's happening, Frank? Song of the day, Down by the Lazy River by the Osmonds.
I am really embarrassed to say this, Frank. I know that song. Down by the lazy river, we're big family. Woo! I'm a little ashamed. No, take little out of that sentence. Very ashamed to say I know that. That was Johnny Osmond with his sister Marie.
Oh, wow. Little tidbits there on the Osmond family. Nice. All right. Thanks, Frank, for that request. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Thursday, September 3rd. And yes, still live from my apartment in Ben's attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's the return of Tracy Baim with the Chicago Reader. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Stormy Weather Thursday. And here's why. Admit the gloom and doom and bleak and ugly news this week, where President Donnie is moving into week 3 of Operation Scare White People. That's his attempt to blatantly stir up the worst fears white people have about black people in order to frighten white people into voting for him. That Operation Scare White People. I have good news. Yes. It involves one of Dennis's favorite movie stars, Stormy Daniels, and her never-ending...
Hey.
I just do stuff like that to see if you're listening, because I can see, you got to see this. Dr. D's wears a lot of hats on the Ben Joravsky Show. So he's always doing stuff, and I'm never 100% sure at any time whether he's listening. So every now and then, his favorite movie star, Stormy Daniels.
Oh, and you can see me on the webcam. I know we got Tracy Baim coming on. I'll put a shirt on. Sorry. Let me get that right.
And D, how many times I have to tell you, when Tracy Baim comes on, publisher of the Reader, you move the bong out of the camera lane, okay? Take it away. I mean, it's okay to have the bong. Sorry, that is just a joke I will never tire of. We used to do that joke back in the old days.
Yeah.
When reefer was still illegal at CPT, and they'd be like, Ben, the reefer jokes are a little risque there. Could you stop it?
I wonder why they got rid of our show.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's ancient history, D. Come on, man. Look, it's onward and upward.
Come on, man.
Yeah, come on, man. Man, I was going to do like 3 times in this. I'll get to it all, D. Anyway, where was I? I have good news. Yes, amid the gloom and doom, Donald Trump's trying to stir up race wars, trying to do anything he can to get reelected so he can destroy the country even more than he's already destroyed it. I got good news. It involves Stormy Daniels and her never-ending litigation against Donald Trump. A judge in California says Trump has to pay Stormy's legal fees of about $44,000. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, duh, Ben, that's old news. That story broke in late August. All right, folks, I was on vacation, so I missed it. Jimmy Coogan just sent me the link. I was like, Jim Coogan will be coming on the show about 4 o'clock today, D, to drop at 7. And he goes, I can talk about Stormy Daniels' legal fees. Until then, D, I didn't even know about it. So I looked it up, and I was like, oh, man, to quote Joe Biden, come on, man.
Come on, man.
This is too good to pass up.
Ben, I can't believe you missed that story.
It's my Coogan impression, guys.
That is an excellent Jim Coogan impression. By the way, you going to do that? Let's do it for Jim when he's on the show a little later today.
Oh, great. Yeah, let's have the last interview with Jim Coogan today. That'd be great.
Where was I? Oh, yes. Stormy Daniels, as you all know, is the stage name of a porn star whose real name is Stephanie Clifford. In 2006, she had a brief low-rent rendezvous with one Donnie Trump to get her to shut up on the grounds that he figured the revelations that he had been stepping on a Melania a few weeks after their son Barron was born would be bad for his campaign. They paid her off.
No collusion.
No.
You didn't collude with her, all right?
No collusion. They didn't even hold hands, okay? Anyway, the Trump handlers were really worried that if the story broke, it could hurt him with the evangelical vote, like the people who follow the 10 Commandments allegedly, and would be upset to know that they're the man they love, the man they worship, the man they revere. One, Donald John Trump, was stepping out on his wife just 2 weeks or 3 weeks after their son was born. What a joke.
Ben, real quick, list the 10 Commandments right now. Go.
Thou shall not put Ben on the spot is number one. What a joke, dude. I think that evangelical train has left the station long ago, as we all know. When we think about the story of Jerry Falwell Jr., his wife, and the pool boy, my favorite sleazy story of the month. Anyway, plus, I think we can all agree, folks, that Melania probably doesn't care that Donnie was stepping out. Let's face it, folks, this is not a marriage of love. Let's be honest. Oh, no, I know all my MAGA hat listeners, and there's thousands of you out there, are really upset what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because the truth must be told. This is a loveless marriage. Think of it as a business transaction in which young Donald, or old Donald, I should say, has a young trophy wife, and Melania has some rich old dude to pay her bills. Come on, folks. Even MAGA hat wearers got to admit that's what the story is. Speaking of conniving young people marrying rich old people, D, have you ever seen the movie How to Be a Latin Lover?
No, I've thought about watching it a few times as I scroll through Netflix.
Well, that's right. That's right. You're on D. Run, don't walk. Watch it. It's hilarious. In this movie, Michael Cera is the young Melania type who marries a rich old lady in this case, and hopes that that she passes on, and then gives him all his money. Anyway, very funny and moving. Anyway, where was I? Back to Trump. So, in order to shut Stormy up, Michael Cohen, then Trump's lawyer, brokered a deal. He paid Stormy $130,000, got her to sign a non-disclosure agreement. She shut up. No one ever heard about the low-rent rendezvous. All the evangelicals voted for Donnie, and he was able to eke out a victory over Hillary Clinton thanks to our Electoral College system, which is a vestige of racism and slavery. Anyway, but in 2018, Stormy wanted out of the non-disclosure agreement so she could make some money selling her story. Trump backed off. The story should be over, but no. Stormy wants her legal fees. And a few weeks ago, while I was on vacation, and while Dennis was on vacation, a California judge named Robert Broadbelt III agreed. There's really no reason for me to say the judge's name, D, but I just love the name. Robert Broadbelt III. In other words, there were two other ones, okay? Just helping you out there. Essentially, Broadbelt's legal argument went this way. Pay up, you cheapskate. Trump had tried to dump the fees on the ground that he personally had not signed the pre-up. And that pre-up was signed by Michael Cohen. So technically, Michael Cohen should pay for Stormy's legal fees. That is so funny that Trump is trying to stick that to Michael Cohen. As you know, Michael Cohen is currently under house arrest after having been convicted of several crimes stemming from his foolishness for ever getting involved with Donald Trump. A word of warning to anybody who ever gets involved with Donald Trump. More shamelessness from Donnie. On the one hand, he wants Cohen to pay his legal bills. On the other hand, he calls him for a rat for testifying against him.
Hey, remember that time when you thought Michael Cohen should run against Donald Trump for president?
No. You're getting your lawyer's name, Michael, mixed up.
Wait,
Michael,
which one? Avenatti is the one. Oh,
yeah.
My goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. D, I think it's time for the intervention. A little less marijuana in the morning.
I stopped smoking pot. Give me a break.
I know, he hasn't.
Come on,
ladies and
man.
gentlemen, come on, man. It's been at least like 3 months, I want to say. He's looking he got that glow, and he's a vegan now.
Okay.
Dennis. No one will. By the way, Chris Paul is a vegan. Did you know that, D?
No, hang tight, non-sports fans.
Yeah, I know. I give you credit for knowing who Chris Paul is. Anyway, utter shamelessness on the part of Donald Trump, trying to dump it on Michael Cohen, a man that Trump now calls a rat for testifying against him. Have you ever noticed how President of Law and Order sounds like a mobster? Apparently, the Trump campaign has conducted a sophisticated focus group survey of white women in the suburbs and discovered they may care about crime, but not mobster crime. Anyway, Judge Broadbelt said, come on, man. No, that was Joe Biden. The judge said, look here, Trump. I may have been bored at night, but it wasn't last night. Pay up, you cheapskate. By the way, D, for 10 trivia points, what did the little birdie say when it flew over President Donald Trump's combed over head?
Oh, look at that head.
Nope. Cheap, cheap, cheap.
Oh, my goodness.
I got a million of them, ladies and
Wow.
gentlemen. What a cheapskate that president is. Try to make Cohen pay the bill. Anyway, back to the judge. In his decision, Broadbelt wrote that Trump had reimbursed Cohen for the $130,000 payment to Clifford, so he had to basically pay the legal fees. So shut up and pay up, cheapskate. Now, I know I should be above all this. I know, it was old news. I shouldn't even mention it. But I cannot help, folks. I don't know who the biggest phony in this story is. Trump, who pretends he's Mr. Law and Order, while dealing in all these shady operations behind the scenes. Evangelicals who swear up and down that they lived a good life while supporting a lying, scheming, sleazy president. Or MAGA Nation, who still believes that President Donnie has cleaned up the swamp. Any way you look at it, they all deserve each other. We got a great show today, everybody. Yes, indeed. That is not a rumor, it's true. TB, Tracy Baim, publisher of the Chicago Reader, will be here. She'll tell us all her opinions on all the political news of the day. And as people may know this about Tracy Baim, they think Tracy Baim is just the fearless leader of the Chicago Reader. That's true. But she's also a political junkie. She's got a lot of sharp opinions, and she's desperate to share with us. And I'm looking forward to talking all things politics with Tracy Baim. But before we do that, the young man from Alton, the man that Tracy Baim finally calls Dr. Doobie, with the news.
No collusion.
Ben, look, I put a shirt on.
Oh, Ben, and it's a nice shirt, D.
It's a spam shirt. All right. How's it going, everybody? Let's find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. We have new details on Madigan Gate. The time utility bigwigs ComEd admitted to arranging jobs, arranging contracts, and arranging payoffs to associates of long time Democratic Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. He's really old. And we'll discuss those details in moments. But first, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Now to our COVID-19 update.
Actually, that was yesterday, Governor. Right now, as we speak, Governor Pritzker is in Berwyn. He's there to discuss the importance of the 2020 census, and later this evening at 6:30, Governor Pritzker will join faith leaders for a COVID-19 memorial service. Now, Governor Pritzker and the Illinois Department of Human Services announced today that the state has received $36.7 million in federal funding to fight the opioid crisis. Funding expands prevention, treatment, recovery, and overdose response initiatives across the state. Here's the quote from Pritzker on the funding. Quote, "Substance use disorder is a disease, and we must do all that we can to ensure that the road to recovery is widely available and accessible. This funding will build on the work of the Department of Human Services and the Department of Public Health in our effort to end the opioid epidemic in Illinois. Nobody is a lost cause, and Illinois will not stop fighting until all of our residents have the opportunity to live their most fulfilling lives."
I'm with him 100% on this. Let me just point out the politics of this, Steve. The opioid epidemic was one that is largely associated, whether accurate or not, in the state of Illinois with downstate Illinois, in general with rural, largely white areas. In fact, Donald Trump, when he was campaigning for president, as you recall, he vowed to do everything he could to eradicate the crisis resulting from opioid addiction. I remember him saying, I remember this was one of the key planks when he gave his inaugural address. He's done nothing on this front.
No collusion.
Yeah, that's it. No collusion. No collusion in fighting opioids, that's for sure. So now Pritzker's, raising some awareness, taking some of the federal funds that are coming out right now, 4 years later, after Donald Trump was sworn in. Isn't that interesting? On the eve of an election, finally he's doing something. So I'm just going to say, there's like double standards, to put it mildly, when it comes to the impact of drugs on two disparate communities. Poor black communities in Chicago and big cities. And when we look at the crime related to that, Donald Trump will wave that as a flag to scare white people into voting for him. And then the opioid crisis, which he'll say he's very concerned about, which is just, he's at the top of his list, things to do, and he's not doing it. And you know what? It doesn't really matter that he's not doing anything. Mark Garino, who's on the show yesterday, outstanding correspondent for the Washington Post, I urge everybody to check out that interview, was talking about the time he spent in Kenosha interviewing Trump supporters right before President Donnie came into Kenosha to meet, basically to have a campaign appearance, let's be honest. And he was stunned by how much just unbridled love that the Trumpsters had for Donnie. I think the quote was, D, he loves me. In other words, they felt Donald Trump loves them. I can't think of a group of people in the history of American politics, at least American politics of my lifetime, who've been more hoodwinked by a politician than the Trumpsters have been hoodwinked for Donald Trump. So that's my opinion, D. Little late, President Trump with the aid.
Now, yesterday, during his COVID-19 press briefing, the governor announced tighter pandemic restrictions on Metro East Illinois, which, by the way, is the area of Illinois where I, myself, was born and raised. Restrictions include a limit of 25 people or 25% of capacity of indoor or outdoor seating at meetings and social events, including weddings. Casinos must also close at 11 p.m. And, well, we knew this was coming. Metro East politicians and business owners are upset and have wrote a letter to the governor demanding that he reverse those restrictions. The following comes from my favorite television news channel growing up, KMOV Channel 4 St. Louis. Love that. Channel 4, man. In a letter to Governor Pritzker, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce in St. Clair County called the new restrictions, quote, extremely hurtful and unfair. Here's some of the letter. What evidence does the state have that shows most of the outbreaks are tied to restaurants and bars that have been complying with the state orders? It is not fair to make them shoulder the responsibility of this pandemic when national box stores are able to stay open with only limited restrictions or none at all. The chamber wrote that restaurants and bars will most likely permanently close as a result of another shutdown. They also said that customers are going across the river to Missouri to, quote, further put their positivity rate at risk and damage their local economy. We respectfully ask that you reconsider these mitigations and reopen indoor dining and allow our businesses to continue operations. They urged Governor Pritzker, quote, it's time to reopen our region and our state before there is nothing to reopen.
Yeah. That Bellevue Chamber of Commerce must listen to the Ben Joravsky show, D, because I was just saying the same thing yesterday. It's really hard to have a successful and effective COVID fighting strategy if it's only state by state. So as I pointed out yesterday, and as the Belleville Chamber of Commerce pointed out today, it's not much good to make people in Illinois wear masks and follow safe procedures if in the red state across the river, Missouri, it's like, woo, party on, rock star, no masks needed. Same thing with Wisconsin, bordering Illinois. If you recall, the Republicans in Wisconsin got the Republicans in the Supreme Court to rule that the governor didn't have the authority to enact safety measures and restrictions. So apparently the Republican Party is sticking to its argument that no restrictions are needed in the face of COVID. And yes, D, it's really difficult to promote sane and logical solutions to safety precautions, I should say, to the COVID. If just across the street, just over the river, you're free to do what you want. So the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce has a very good point. On the other hand, what is Pritzker supposed to just ignore it? Well, since the red states, aren't paying attention, I'm not going to pay attention either. I just want to point something out.
Point it out. Do it.
The hypocrisy, the freaking hypocrisy on this stuff when it comes to COVID. Like when it just comes to ordinary, regular people, it's, liberty. Don't tell me what to do. I don't want to wear my mask. I don't care if I get it. I don't care if I die. It's just, I'm just telling you what I hear the MAGA hat crowd wearing as they go to court to fight attempts to make them wear masks. You got that crazy sheriff down in Florida who went the other way and ordered people who come to the jail not to wear masks, which somehow or other, not quite sure how that fits in with the whole libertarian argument here, but let's face it, they're a bunch of frauds and phonies. You all know that, people. So, on the other hand, baseball. They want to get those games played. They take it seriously. They understand how susceptible people are to passing on the virus. The St. Louis Cardinals, Dennis' beloved St. Louis Cardinals, which operate just across the river
Let's go Redbirds.
from the Metro East area. Apparently, the St. Louis Cardinals were listening to Donald Trump and the Republican officials in Missouri, and they weren't doing proper protocols. Guess what? A whole bunch of them got the virus. They had to shut it down for what? 2 weeks, D? They didn't play baseball? The Cardinals were the one team in baseball that didn't play? No game. Every team like had a suspended its games when they came against the Cardinals. Now they're playing all these double headers to catch up with them. And now the Cardinals are going, oh, we're not going to listen to our Republican officials in Missouri anymore. We're going to wear the masks. Isn't it funny? There's one standard for baseball players and basketball players. They have to follow those rules because they want to protect their investment. The owners want to protect their investment in these high-priced players. But for everybody else, it's liberty. Go die. Who was that? I just saw some football player interviewed. D was saying, I'll just take the consequence. Oh, Kirk Cousins, quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, one of your favorite quarterbacks.
How'd you know?
I don't know. Have you ever even heard of him? Anyway, he was opining. I guess you could tell when you see one of these interviews with someone that they got a little MAGA in them when they say something like, well, if I get it, I get it. If I die, I die. They're not really serious about it. You know what I'm saying? They're just in the back of their mind, they're thinking, I'm not going to get it. So really, what do I care? You know, but then the questioner goes, well, what if you do get it? And then they feel compelled to all of a sudden get philosophical. Well, if I get it, I die. It's just my time. So there's nothing I can do about it. Oh, yeah? What about the hospital workers that got to treat you? Well, just think about them for a minute. I always point out, MAGA hat people, if you assume that it's just your time when you get it and you don't care if you die, just go in the alley. Just go in the alley right now and lay down and don't bother anyone in the hospital. Yeah. I don't see any MAGA people lining up outside my porta potty in that alley, D.
Speaking of, can we get a porta potty update there in the alley? We haven't had one in a while. There's for new listeners, there's a porta potty outside Ben's alley. I guess there's construction people. Big orange porta potty, and we haven't had an update in a while. Ben, what's the latest?
No one in the porta potty, but I got a report the other day that a company came and emptied out the porta potty. So that's good news.
Disgusting.
Well, you asked for the update. Anyway.
And now I know this is a political podcast, and I constantly rail our host, Ben Joravsky, for talking about sports. But, dude, did you catch that Oklahoma City-Houston game last night?
Yes. How did you see it?
I have the internet and YouTube.
Yes. Oh, my God. Thank you, T. Thank you for letting me talk sports.
It's a good game.
Oh, happy day. I watched the game, and let me just say, can I just say something about basketball, my beloved basketball, which I love more than anything in the world, I think? Well, that's not true. My family.
I don't know.
You know, pizza's on the list. I love pizza, fried chicken. Anyway, too many like lawyers in the game. All these referees is like lawyer, chapter, verse. I mean, these games are delayed forever as let's review let's go look at the videotape. Let's see if the ball touched his jersey. Let's see what the rule. And then all the players are like really they got all this time in the bubble. They've memorized the rule book, and they're always yelling at the ref. Oh, that's not technically the rule.
Yeah,
By the way, way too many timeouts. Let's one timeout per half. All right, T.
Even during a pandemic, too many timeouts.
Yes, there's too many timeouts even during the pandemic. And let me just say this about that. When I pointed this out to my wife, very great wife, watching the game with me, keeping me company. She said, well, that's the time they used for the commercials. And I was like, oh, yes, I forgot. Duh.
Yeah, and like this program, they have tons of sponsors, so they need to, take a time out.
By the way, anybody want to kick in a little money? Feel free, okay?
BennyJShow@gmail.com. BENNY. The letter J Show @gmail.com. Send us an email if you'd like to sponsor the program. We're looking for them.
Stop being so cheap, okay?
That is funny, though, with basketball. Like, they do all these little fouls and everything. Meanwhile, on hockey, they're just beating the living hell out of each other.
No, I know. And since hockey's in the bubble, too, not that I follow it, but they have their own little bubble. They're playing out their playoffs. And I saw this article, D, that fights are up. They go, well, no, people aren't watching. All right, guys, start beating each other up. Bang, get the sticks. Crazy sport, hockey. Crazy sport.
All right, sports talk's over, guys. Don't worry. All right, now to the other infectious disease spreading throughout Illinois, political corruption and Madigan Gate. Let's do this, all right? The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Rachel Hinton. The headline reads, House panel to investigate Madigan for what Republicans call a, quote, pattern of concerning behavior. Ooh. Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan's dealings with ComEd will now be investigated by a special bipartisan legislative panel Republicans called for this week to determine if the powerful lawmaker did anything wrong. We're going to pause right there. Ben, did Madigan do anything wrong?
Well, D, I have a major flip-flop I'm about to reveal on the show. Do you want me to reveal it now, or
Oh,
should
no,
I
that's a
wait?
tease. That's a tease. Guys, please keep listening. A flip-flop's coming, all right? Hang tight, all right?
Flip-flop? See that thing up there, D? That's a flip-flop on the horizon.
3 Republicans invoked the House rule for, quote, disciplinary proceedings on Monday, more than a month after a deferred prosecution agreement for the utility company revealed what the GOP legislators deemed a pattern of concerning behavior in the Speaker's office. House Republican leader Jim Durkin, Representative Andrew Chesney, he's from Freeport. And, well, since we're going with this here, Representative Ryan Spain filed the petition to create the committee, which will be comprised of 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Madigan immediately recused himself from the process and appointed House Majority Leader Greg Harris to, quote, handle all aspects of this matter. But not before denouncing the maneuver Wednesday as a political stunt by Republicans seeking to create a political circus only months away from one of the most consequential elections of our lifetimes. We have some Madigan quotes to read, but before we do that, Ben Joravsky, your thoughts. Is this, in fact, a political stunt from Illinois Republicans?
Yes, but I'm a little worried about going too further because I don't want to reveal.
Flip-flop coming up, guys. Madigan's
Flip-flop coming up. And a
Oh,
lot of it
boy.
will emerge from the quotes that young Dr. D is about to read. Go ahead.
Oh, we are teasing that crap out of you today. Sorry, guys. We have some, let's see here. Madigan, 78 years old, has not been charged with any crime. He has denied any wrongdoing, and he did so again on Wednesday. In a statement, Madigan said, quote, as I've stated previously, I'm not doing Madigan voice. As I've stated previously, I have never made a legislative decision with improper motives. I can't identify one thing Representative Durkin and the Illinois Republican Party have done to help Illinois residents struggling from a global pandemic and a weakened economy. Rather than focusing on ways to get us out of Donald Trump's mess, Republicans have spent their time and dollars trying to convince people I am to blame for the type of corruption and unethical conduct Donald Trump emulates every day. Wait, did I just read a Ben Joravsky column there? That sounded like something you'd write. Madigan went on to say, quote, the notion that the passage of 2 consequential pieces of energy legislation was tied to the hiring of retention of a few individuals is seriously mistaken. Like their president, the House Republicans know how to create a political circus, but time and time again fail to show up when it's time to govern. If Representative Durkin wants to question whether legislators should be allowed to make job recommendations, I encourage him to be transparent and disclose all of the jobs that he has requested or lobbyists that he has recommended over the years. He should also disclose the various actions he personally took to pass the energy bills both in 2011 and 2016.
Yes. Is that the end of your read?
It's flip-flop time, baby.
All right. I read that article today. By the way, I ahead of me on this story. He read the story or saw the headline yesterday at the end of the news, at the end of yesterday's show. And but we ran out of time, Dave. So you go, tomorrow we'll talk about it. And then, of course, today, that meant I got a chance to read it in a real newspaper. So now I know the story.
As opposed to the fake newspaper online.
Yes, exactly. Well put. So let me just say this. When the story first broke that Commonwealth Edison had pled guilty to having put Michael Madigan's cronies on the payroll and agreed to pay a $200 million fine. I think it's $200 million, D. I said, you go back. I don't even make you go back to the videotape, D. I'm just going to say, I was like, Madigan, you got to step down. Time to step down. I was there, D. As much as I love Michael Joseph Madigan for standing up on behalf of the unions of Illinois and of collective bargaining rights for employees in Illinois, and as much as I respect him and admire him and appreciate him for defying Bruce Rauner, for being the goalie that protected the net, if you will, the safety net.
All right, we're done with the sports talk.
Oh, sorry, man. As much as I appreciate him for standing up to Rauner, for keeping Rauner from turning Illinois into another Wisconsin, I thought he had gone too far. I thought that, enough's enough, that this big machine way of doing business, big machine ways that I've been denouncing as a columnist for the Reader going back to whenever dinosaurs were walking on the earth when I first started denouncing him. I said I could not take it anymore, and he had to step down. And if you recall, D, I was one of the few lefties that said he had to step down. And that, at best, most of the state reps on the Democratic side were, what did Eric Zorn so brilliantly call them? If troop. If the allegations prove true, I will call on the speaker to step down.
He calls him the if troop. I call him Will Gazzardi and the boys.
Dr. D. Come on, Will. You come out from under the desk. I'm scared. Come on. Anyway, if the allegations are true, I'll say he should step down. That was very clever of Eric Zorn. I was very envious, I have to admit. Why didn't I think of that? How come I didn't think of that, D? I watched F Troop as a kid. I know who Larry Storch is and Forrest Tucker. Okay?
Millennials, hang tight, please. We got a lot of 2020 content coming up.
By the way, D, you should have seen me when I got that phone. I was like, can I find a millennial? I was like stopping millennials in this. Will you help me with my phone? Anyway, just stopping random. I'm an old baby boomer. I don't know what to do. Oh, it's okay, baby boomer. Allow me. And then like the phone, you put a phone in a millennial's hand and the phone is like, home at last. Someone who understands me. It's like millennials have got this kind of relationship with a phone where phone comes to life. The phone is like smoking a cigarette and drinking alcohol. I love this person. Then you put the phone in my hand. It's like, oh, God. It's old person. Anyway, where was I? I can't remember where I was, D. Oh, you started it with the F Troop thing.
No, you started it with the F Troop thing.
Yeah, so give Eric Zorn credit, man. He came up with that if troop. If they find that the allegations are true, then I will say step down. If the allegations are true, he's probably going to be indicted. So it's not really the bravest stance to take, as Eric Zorn pointed out in his if troop columns. But anyway, nonetheless, D, I said he's got to step down. And I've been sticking to that day after day after day. But then I read Rachel Hinton's column or article in today's Bright One, my beloved Bright One, home delivered every day. And I came to the conclusion that he should not step down, D. And here's the flip-flop. That's me doing the flip-flop. Okay? That's me flipping.
That's the flip-flop noise, huh?
I mean, he kind of got, and you know what, D? I think he's been listening to the Ben Joravsky show.
I can't blame him.
Somehow or other, I don't think Michael Joseph Madigan listens to the show, but maybe Steve Brown
This show
does.
sucks.
Yeah. I'm with you, Madigan. They are a bunch of frauds, those Republicans. They are a bunch of phonies. They are a bunch of hypocrites. I've been saying it forever. You read the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Where's Michael Girardi when I need him? You read the columns of all their right-wingers. They're angry. They denounce Michael Joseph Madigan. Meanwhile, ask them about Donald John Trump, hiding under the table. Not one word. The swamp is filled and growing. Like it's got all these weird creatures in it now, sucking our money out of our pockets and our wallets. In Washington, not one word from the Republican Party in the state of Illinois. Darren Bailey, where's he when we need him to speak up against corruption in Washington? He's silent. Jim Durkin, not one word. Chicago Tribune editorial board, not one word. Johnny Cass, he's under the table with Gazzardi. So, you know what? I'm like, if they're going to be such freaking frauds and hypocrites, if they're going to tolerate Donald Trump, if they're going to look the other way at all of his crimes, felonies and misdemeanors, his lying, his resisting subpoenas, his firing aides who dared to testify and ordering others not to testify, if the Republican Party is going to turn its head to that and pretend that the only rules that govern politicians are those that govern Michael Joseph Madigan, I'm not joining their amen chorus. D, not gonna do it. To quote your favorite group, Hall & Oates, no can do, okay? So
I can't go for that. No, can't do. I love that group.
I did not know that. I love that song. No can do. I can't go for that. My dear friend Norm and I, whenever they play that at bowling, we would both sit there and sing it together, and we would wave our finger in the air. No, I can do. No.
Well, I'm glad you provided comedy for the rest of the bowling.
Figure out what a bunch of nerds. We got a few MAGA hatters in that bowling league, by the way. So that's it, guys. I'm doing a flip-flop. Yes, flip-flop. Bang. I am not joining the chorus. And I know that having Michael Joseph Madigan at the head of the Democratic Party will really hurt the fair tax initiative, by the way, which I'm feeling very pessimistic about. As I read, I still haven't talked about Andy Shaw's column and the Andy. So disappointed in that column he wrote. Anyway, I can already see the chorus lining up against fair tax. Well, Michael Madigan's in office. We can't trust. Well, how are you going to pay the bills? You still got to pay the bills. Doesn't matter if Michael Madigan's in power. Now you still have to pay your obligations. So the issue is, do you want wealthier people to pick up a greater portion, or do you just want to keep it the way it is and have working stiffs like Dennis and me pick up the obligation? Well, I think I'd rather have you and Dennis do it, Ben. So that's it, D. Yeah. And by the way, he raises another great point. The unstated allegation, they haven't really come out, is that the Commonwealth Edison rate hike would not have passed had ComEd not put Michael Joseph Madigan's cronies on the payroll. What fantasy land are you living in, Republicans, if you want people to believe that? I can't recall ComEd losing a rate hike deal. And this goes back to when Madigan wasn't even the speaker. This goes back to the days of Pate Phillip, who's the president of the Senate, and Lee Daniels, who was the House Speaker. Republicans, they controlled the House. All right, this is ancient history, and I know nobody remembers it except for people like me and maybe Rich Miller, but I don't recall any Republicans standing up on the part of rate holders against ComEd. So this notion that somehow or other this rate hike passed because Michael Joseph Madigan got a few cronies on the payroll is fictitious. So I look forward to the hearing, D. I hope they explore who voted for the rate hike. I'd like to hear what Jim Durkin had to say about the rate hike. I'd say I'd like to hear what Darren Bailey said about it, but Darren Bailey was not in the State House back then, D. So unfortunately, we don't know what Darren Bailey had to say about that. Darren Bailey, of course, being the downstate representative, who's the brains of the Republican Party these days. So I'm with you, Michael Joseph Madigan. I am flip-flopping. I'm officially flip-flopping. I think I'm going to write a column to this point, D, in the Reader, so I can't duck and dodge. You know, like I'm going to bang, flip-flop.
How is that the noise for flip-flopping?
I don't know, but I just love saying it. Well, think of it like you go, bang, and then you just bounce. It's like the bouncing sound. Bang.
I see where you're going.
See? Okay. So, you know, Eric Zorn may have come up with If Troop. But has Eric Zorn ever come up with a bang sound? I don't think so.
How would you write that out in a paper?
BOIINNG. Bang.
You guys liking today's show or what, huh? We're bringing it today.
By the way, Eric Zorn is listening to this right now going, damn that Joravsky. I never thought of boing.
Oh, right now he's looking up how to spell it exactly.
Well, I'm with you, Michael Joseph Madigan. What a bunch of frauds and phonies they are.
Well, I look forward to you flip-flopping again after the election and going, Madigan, resign, you bastard.
D, I've been known to flip-flop in my life, yes. I believe I sometimes call it a flag blowing in the wind. But Babs, I'm not flip-flopping on Nancy Pelosi. Still love her.
Give it time, guys. He'll be back on with that too. Shout out to the live stream chat. You guys are awesome. Currently, we have a debate going on about Hall & Oates. Fred says Hall & Oates have one good song, and I can't go for that. No, that's the only one. What do you say about that, Ben?
Oh, that's not true.
That is not true.
Whoa.
Gross.
I don't know how to face it. I like Hall & Oates. I'm putting it out there right now. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I like Hall &
you
Oates.
got Rich Girl, You Make My Dreams, Sarah Smile. There's so many.
Rich Girl is such a great song. She's a rich girl, but she's gone too far. And I love Hall & Oates, ladies and gentlemen. Not ashamed to admit it. Not ashamed to admit it.
There's someone in the porta potty. Me too.
Hold on, let me look. That's been kind of quiet in the porta potty today, Dave.
Thank God. All right, on to the news in the city of Chicago. No public events scheduled for our Chicago Mayor, Lori Lightfoot.
We've said it's time to bring in the light, and it's sure shining on all of us tonight. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Yeah, all right. No public events scheduled and no news stories involving the mayor. On Monday, Lightfoot announced that she is turning a new leaf when it comes to her political discourse. So, no new news. Maybe a sign that she's living up to those comments. Am I right, Ben?
Yes. She's decided that it's going to be peace and love. And what's so simple about peace, love, and understanding? Huh, D? All right.
Rumor has it she just bought a Volkswagen Beetle. Oh my God, she is getting real peaceful. All right, so we do have some other city news to discuss. This comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Woman Spielman. The headline reads, cost to deploy 1,200 National Guard members in the city for 4 months is $54 million. A 4-month deployment by 1,200 members of the Illinois National Guard to stop Chicago's never-ending cycle of gang violence would cost taxpayers $54 million and stigmatize entire South and West Side neighborhoods for years to come. This is what aldermen were told on Wednesday. Alicia Tate Nadeau, probably butchered that last name, but Alicia Tate Nadeau was the Illinois National Guard's first ever female general. She ran Chicago's Office of Energy Management and Communications under former Mayor Rahm Emanuel, Ben's favorite, and currently serves as acting director of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency. Wednesday, Tate Nadeau testified before the city's Council Committee on Public Safety about a resolution calling for declaring a state of emergency in Chicago that could pave the way for a 4-month stint by the Illinois National Guard to either relieve police officers working 12-hour days or protect neighborhood assets so local officers can respond to violent crime. Tate Nadeau said a 4-month deployment by 1,200 National Guard members would cost $13.6 million per month, or $54.4 million total. That money is, quote, non-reimbursable by the federal government. Ben, go ahead.
So much to unpack here. So much to unpack here. So much to unpack. So little time to unpack it. D, are you going to come back to this story, or is that the end of your read on the story?
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to tune up the guitar because it's going to be a long riff. First of all, I urge absolutely everyone after today's show to check out the Carlos Ramirez Rosa interview that we dropped. I believe it was on Monday, D, right? Is it Alder Monday? That was an Alder Monday. And Carlos he really does a great job doing the deep dive on this story, the story behind the story. Okay, so this was a hearing. The article that Fran Spielman wrote was reporting on a hearing that Chicago City Council had on a resolution proposed, I believe, by Alderman Raymond Lopez of the 15th Ward and Alderman Anthony Beal of the 9th Ward. I'm doing this off the top of my head, which was kind of a political stunt, if you will. It was an attempt to sort of embarrass Lori Lightfoot. But at the same time, Raylo, come on, I can give you some credit here. At the same time, it was trying to expose the light. How about that, Raylo? On the policing strategies that the city faces. And one thing that Raylo and I agree on, and that Troy LaRaviere and I agree on, and Raylo agree on, how about that? You never thought the three of us would be in agreement, is that there should be some sort, I don't know, of public hearing dedicated to revealing, that's the word, revealing what the strategy the city has been employing over the last several weeks since George Floyd was murdered in terms of trying to prevent civil unrest, rioting and looting, et cetera, and so forth throughout the city of Chicago. What exactly is the strategy? How are the city placing its police officers? Are we adequately dispersing them on throughout the city, or are we just using them to siphon off or quote unquote protect the downtown? Tracy Baim's got a few thoughts on this. We're going to be talking about that with her in a little while. So I believe that's a relevant area of discussion. I believe it's really important that the city come clean. The good government guy in me, the same one that was, denouncing Michael Madigan for years and years and years, feels that transparency is really important when it comes to Chicago, and that an enlightened citizenry is a more sophisticated citizenry and means a better city. So all that being said, the reality is that Lori Lightfoot does not want that discussion, for whatever reason. I don't know of a mayor in captivity, to quote the great Harold Washington, who would want some discussion. Mayors don't like transparency on their policing decisions. They don't want people to know really the truth about how they're deploying police. Police are essentially in a propaganda tool of mayors, that they use them at key times to assure the public that the mayor, are really looking out for the citizens of Chicago. So you don't want a little too much transparency to see how it really goes. You don't want to know how the sausage is made, all right? So it was sort of an embarrassment that Raylo and Anthony Beal introduced that resolution. Under normal circumstances, that resolution would have been sent off to committee and died and would never have a hearing. But they forced the city council vote on it, D. That took place a couple weeks ago. And that was the hearing. That was the meeting where ultimately a consortium, a very bizarre coalition of social democrats like Carlos Ramirez Rosa joined force with the law and order crowd like Alderman Ray Lopez and Anthony Napolitano of the 41st Ward to vote that the mayor have a hearing on the matter and not just get to dump it to committee. So they had the hearing, and the hearing is showing that the mayor it's going to cost too much money, and it would stigmatize the city. That's the mayor's argument, stigmatize the city. Ultimately, I think the city council will vote down that resolution. I think that many of the social democrats who voted for the hearing will turn right around and vote against having the National Guard come to Chicago. They don't want that. They merely wanted a hearing on the matter, and they did not want the mayor to use that old procedure of burying something in committee to keep it from having this very headline that we see in front of us. So I think it's like a revealing story of how politics work in Chicago. In terms of how we should fight crime and use police and use law enforcement, not so revealing, D. I don't think they want that discussion. To quote Jack Nicholson, the public's not ready for that discussion. That's from A Few Good Men. So it was a political maneuver by Raylo and Anthony Beal. And I do not think it's going to shed much light on what we really want to know about, and that is policing strategies in the city of Chicago.
All right. Now, yesterday we heard a brand new impression from you, George W. Bush. You got a Jack Nicholson?
Oh, my God. Got to put your hands in the air, Chief. Put your hands in the
wow.
air.
2 for 2, man. That's a good one.
You know what movie that's from?
No.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One of my favorite scenes of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson. Have you ever seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah, I've seen that years ago.
He plays Randall McMurphy, and so he's teaching Big Chief, who's like 6'8", how to play basketball. And people don't realize this Big Chief can actually talk. Hope I'm not giving things away. I think everybody out there has either seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or has no intention of ever seeing it. So he's teaching him basketball. Put your hands in the air, Chief.
Yeah, it's really good.
What can I say, man? Rich Little. Okay? Huh? I'm Rich Little.
For those keeping track at home, I think we're at 4 decent impressions from Ben
Wait.
Joravsky.
What are the 4?
We
I'm writing them
got
down.
Bill Clinton, George W. Bush.
All right.
We got the one you just did, Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
And, of course, Ken Davis.
Don't forget Flannery.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 5. 5. I sit corrected. 5 good impressions. Whoa, dude.
What can I say?
Your SNL audition is coming up soon. Do not worry. The Hall & Oates conversation continues on the live stream chat, by the way. So if you're listening on download right now, boy, you should check out this live stream chat someday. Get in on this Hall & Oates conversation. Jay Marie says, hey, Hall & Oates have a lot of good songs, all right? Nothing wrong with liking Hall & Oates.
Thank you, Jay Marie. I'm with you 100% on that one.
Brent on the live stream chat goes, Rich Little? Who the hell is that?
I know, it's really old.
All right.
I admit. Wait, D, what's the other guy, man? He does John Madden.
Frank Caliendo.
Yeah, I'm Frank Caliendo. What's his last name?
Caliendo.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's good. All right, that's our local news for the day. We do have some updates on Joe Biden's visit to Kenosha. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. Mitchell Armentrout and Rachel Hinton. Shortly after touching down at Milwaukee's Mitchell International Airport at about 11:40 a.m., the former vice president and his wife, Jill Biden, met privately with the father and 3 siblings of Jacob Blake. Their meeting lasted about an hour before Biden headed to the Belleguerd, southern-eastern Wisconsin city for a community meeting to, quote, bring together Americans to heal and address the challenges that we face. That was according to his campaign. That meeting is expected to take place at about 2 p.m. at a Lutheran church west of the downtown Kenosha city. And the big update that you're all wondering, yes, Joe Biden's wearing a mask.
Okay. Let me weigh in on something, D, that's on my mind. Since you raised Joe Biden's trip to Kenosha, we talked a lot about Donald Trump's trip to Kenosha, which was yesterday. And I urge everyone to listen to our interview with Mark Garino. Really insightful eyewitness account of what went down during the unrest in Kenosha. And Garino was there when Kyle Rittenhouse was firing off his gun. He actually saw Rittenhouse. Was close by, and I really I cannot recommend enough checking out that interview. Great stuff from Mark Garino, Washington Post correspondent. Thank you very much, Mark, for coming on the show. So I was reading today's Tribune, and I wasn't going to mention this, D. I just noted this thing in the Tribune, but since you mentioned Biden coming to Kenosha, and we have a few minutes before we bring on Tracy, I gotta say this, D. All right. So I know that the right-wingers and the MAGA hat crowd and just in general, the Donald Trump crowd is always complaining about how the media is unfair to them. Called fake news, fake media. They assail them and assault them. And I believe that the impact that has, whether conscious or not, is to get the mainstream media to bend over backwards for one Donald Trump. I believe it's called playing the refs. We're going back to a sports metaphor, D. I know you said don't talk about sports, but I'll just say this. When a coach just starts ranting, the call went against the Heat. They put Chris Middleton on the line, got 3 free throws out of it, and so it was a controversial call. The Heat were crying. So what happened? Right after that, they called a foul on the Bucks, put Jimmy Butler on the line, and he won the game. That was payback. Working the refs, and that's what Trump does, and he does it successfully. And I think I just got to tell you, Tribune, I was very disappointed in your coverage of Joe Biden's Kenosha trip. Because it's a story about Joe Biden going to Kenosha, but in the story, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quotes from Trump ripping Biden. So a good chunk of the story is Trump getting his message out. So when Donnie Trump goes to Kenosha Tribune, I didn't see you putting in attack ads from Joe Biden. You know? When Donnie Trump went to Kenosha, you didn't say, well, Joe Biden said this. But here they got Trump and Republicans that have accused Biden and Democrats of avoiding criticisms of violent protests and contending Democratic governors and mayors have failed to use strong language. Okay, so you put that in there. But wait, that's not enough. Earlier on Wednesday, Trump posted on Twitter. Oh, now you're quoting his Twitter feed? Joe Biden is a low-energy candidate, the likes of which we have never seen before. What the? Why are you quoting Trump's Twitter page? You know, I'm not going to read it. It's just more bashing of Biden. It's more Trump propaganda, but you put it out there. Wait, that's not enough? You're going to quote the Twitter page again? Joe Biden is not on the side of law enforcement, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's not enough. Trump's airing new ads in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Well, you got to quote the ads. Lawless criminals terrorize Kenosha. Good God, Tribune. I mean, this is like something I would read in the Tribune from like 1970 or 80, when the Tribune was just blatantly a Republican newspaper. And they go, then they quote this ad, side by side with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Biden and the radical left's weak responses let the game. Man, what BS? I mean, just quoting the stuff. We're just going to put it out there. We're just like it's a fact or something like that. No analysis or anything of that sort. And here we go. President Trump is making it stop sending in the National Guard. It's not even true. I don't know, D. You know, I'm starting to think that the Republicans have successfully cowed a lot of mainstream reporters and got them to bend over backwards for Donald Trump. So even when there's an article in the newspaper, like this article, this allegedly objective article in the Tribune about Joe Biden's Kenosha trip, they got to throw in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 different Donald Trump quotes, which are largely allowed to exist as though, you know, it was a factual thing. Me looking out the window and seeing there's clouds in the sky. So I don't know, Tribune, you could do a lot better than this. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say that Donald Trump has successfully played the referee game and got the refs to give him a call he needs. I think I see Tracy Baim online. D, are we going to bring her on right now, or should we take a break?
How do you feel? You want to go now?
I think we take a brief break and bring on the great Tracy Baim from the Chicago Reader, my beloved Chicago Reader.
All right, everybody, hang tight. We'll be right back. Listen to Mike Girardi, and when we come back, Tracy Baim.
City voted just for fun.
Come on, man.
We got a feeling this mayor's the one.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Benny J, take it away.
As promised, with us is Tracy Baim, publisher of my beloved Chicago Reader. Tracy, people may not realize it because she looks about 40 years younger than she actually is, but she's been covering Chicago politics almost as long as I have. Is that freaking possible? I actually think we're tied, Tracy Baim, because you started covering it like when you got out of Lane Tech.
No,
so,
1984. 1984.
Okay, I got 3 years on you, barely. That's I love those pictures of Tracy from 1984 interviewing Harold Washington. This baby face, she's like she's 14. Tracy, before we get started with the deep dive, talking all the local issues of the day, particularly your essay that you wrote for the Reader about bridges, I thought it was a really powerful essay. We could talk about that. Your metaphor about bridges in the city and city politics and policing, et cetera, and so forth. Why don't you give an update on the Chicago Reader, my beloved Reader, and tell us, first of all, happy anniversary. Did I hear that right? Did I get that?
2-year anniversary, yep. The new ownership of the Reader took over 2 years ago, October 1st, and they hired me early September to start the process. And we're in the process now of a full conversion to 501c3 nonprofit status, which should be in place by January 1st. So the two owners saved it from the wrecking ball, and we've been forever grateful for Elsie Higginbottom and Len Goodman for doing that. And now we're in the process of kind of getting them off the hook and moving into a nonprofit model soon. Boy, oh boy, were we thrown the biggest curveball you could possibly be thrown in March. Yeah. So the last few months, what we've really tried to do is basically replace all the money we lost. And we didn't know how long this was going to go, and we still don't know when it's going to end. But we just started grabbing whatever grants and fundraising and other kinds of revenue we could to replace the 90% of advertising that we lost. Because the core advertisers in the Chicago Reader are events, theater and music. So the last few months, we've been just literally gobbling up and doing whatever we can, creating books. Board. You can find a lot of our items, even masks and T-shirts, all of that proceeds that support the Reader. So the last few months were not planned on my business plan of saving the Reader, but so far our team has really come through, and the community's come through to help us get to this point.
Well, let me put the shout out again. My beloved Reader, I say it. I've been writing for the Reader since, oh my goodness, 1984. I've been a staff writer at the Reader since 1990. The show is sponsored by the Reader. Dennis and I are always putting out the word. The Reader could use contributions and donations. The show could use contributions and donations. And I put this out there. The Reader has taken a stand. This is me speaking, not Tracy Baim. The Reader has taken a stand on, I call them lefty issues. Who else out there has taken a stand on policing issues, educational funding issues, how we divvy up the pie, TIF issues, racial injustice issues, going back to the 70s. And I feel as though, and I'm speaking from my heart here, that it's help us out. That's basically all I can, help us out. We've been there, we've been on the front lines, journalistic speaking, and we still are. We have so many young, bright, talented journalists who are writing incredible stories about these important issues, challenging issues that I don't see covered anywhere else. This is me speaking, and I just feel as though we keep the tradition. Guys like me, we're fading out. Okay, I'm one of the older generation, but there's a whole other generation. Once a week or every other week, Maya comes on. Everybody knows Maya. So I urge everybody to kick in a little bit to my beloved Reader. Keep it going. We need that voice. We need that. I call it a lefty voice, Tracy. I don't know what you call it, but it's definitely a left of center alternative voice that, in my humble opinion,
say mainstream, because there are a lot of community and terrific stuff. Many of them are online only, and the reader. It's interesting about the word lefty, because I guess I consider myself progressive, and on any one issue that you might look at politically, I don't even understand how lefty comes into play, because I want health care for all. How is that a lefty issue? Like, I mean, I want, to get rid of college debt. I want there to be universal basic income. And these get tagged as lefty issues when they're actually just, like, to me, human rights and justice. They get pigeonholed as being lefty when actually what they truly are doing is helping 99% of the people who aren't billionaires out there survive this world. And it really is a PR game that the right wing has been winning for 50, 60 years, ever since they started to get that income tax from 85% at the top level down to almost nothing. And their goal to drown the federal government, all those kinds of things got positioned, and then kind of pushed everything else over to the left. That to me really is a center issue. So yeah, I guess I'm a lefty because I believe in a lot of those things, but I don't believe in those labels. I believe my goal in my life is to push things that help the vast majority of people. And sometimes that's a human rights issue. Sometimes it's specific to LGBTQ rights or reparations or things like that. But in the end, it lifts all boats. And to me, that's what the reader's about, is the underdog, the marginalized, the people that are actually in the majority that get shoved aside by the minority.
I'm with you. And the reason I always say lefty is because I'm embracing the label they put on me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am a lefty. Yeah, so what? Okay. And here's the deal.
Yeah.
Healthcare helps all. So Donald Trump right now is trying, folks, to eradicate healthcare. He's got lawyers that you, the taxpayers, are paying in court to try to eradicate Obamacare. That's what he's trying to. And you know what? Obamacare is a funny segue, Tracy, because I remember first Barack Obama, he didn't want to call it Obamacare. And then at some point he embraced it. You get what I'm saying? And it's like, they're going to call it that? Okay. Yeah, it's Obamacare. I did something for people that nobody else could do. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, but what's so funny about that is that the right wing still wins the battle of the day, because what happens is Obamacare is not called Obamacare in the states. Every state calls it something else. So when it's something you want, you label it something different. When it's something you want to destroy, you would label it Obamacare. So all these people in this country in 2016 voted against Obamacare, not realizing they were actually on Obamacare in Tennessee and Mississippi and all these other places just by another name.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's that con is still going on, where Donald Trump at the convention, I actually watched the Donald Trump speech, Tracy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. He talked about, I'm keeping, health care for you, no pre-existing conditions. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, he's got lawyers in court trying to destroy the rule that eradicates prevents insurance companies from discriminating against people with pre-existing conditions. So you're right. The label game is been very effectively used by the Republicans and the right for years and years. And by the way, I got it. And so that's why I embrace lefty. When I was on vacation, I saw this headline in the Sun-Times. I had to laugh. It said lefty, and it had it in quotes, like these weird sub-creatures, these sub-aliens were speaking out regarding the Biden, et cetera, and they quoted like Stacey Davis Gates, and they quoted Carlos Ramirez Rosa. You know what I'm saying? Like lefties.
Yeah, no, God fear the lefties who actually want you to have health care and a higher minimum wage. Oh my God. Well, so I agree with you, Ben. Like, the word queer was often used against the LGBTQ community for decades. In the early 90s, Queer Nation started and said, you know what? We're going to embrace that term so it doesn't hurt me as much. So I agree with you. Once you claim those labels, there's a few I wouldn't say and maybe should never be reclaimed, but queer was one of those. The same thing. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm queer. What about it? Yeah. So I agree with you on that. Call me a lefty if you want. I don't care. Just get the fact that these are the policies I support correct.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. By the way, you mentioned that. Let's talk about that, LGBTQ. I remember you said 1984 was when you started covering politics. I remember, believe it or not, the Republican Convention of 1984. And Jean Kirkpatrick got on that stage. And I don't know if you remember this, Tracy, and she talked about San Francisco Democrats. and literally the Democrats were having their convention in San Francisco, all right? But I think we all know what she was doing, Tracy Baim. You know what I'm saying? I think we all...
Because that was Ferraro, and that was one of the first, it was the first national campaign I covered. Geraldine Ferraro, and she was coming through Chicago, and Mondale, I think that was Mondale. It's funny, I remember Ferraro much better. But no, I know San Francisco Democrats was used for decades. I mean, it really is still used. It's just not used as effectively. And there are certainly gay Republicans, God forbid, but about 20% of the gay community traditionally votes Republican at the national level. So, they definitely in the 80s, gay issues and AIDS issues were totally used to try to move people away from the Democratic Party, just like abortion. It continues to be used. They like to distract on social issues so they can steal everything out of your pockets. It's that book, What's the Matter with Kansas? People constantly vote against their economic issues because they distract you with gay stuff and abortion and all these other things they could care less about. We know they are not the pro-life party. They've killed 185,000 people so far this year. And every day at 9/11 seems to happen. So we know they just are good at PR and never governing. They always put us into bankruptcy whenever they run, and then they ask the Democrats, they come in and fix it, and then they go and steal the money again.
By the way, Tracy, I had never heard that. 20%? Did I hear you correctly?
It varies, and these are national polls, and it's notoriously difficult to nail down LGBTQ voting, but any polls that have been done that have included it, including national network polls, exit polls, show it's approximately 20%. It may be 18 or 22, and it depends, and some certainly vote Libertarian and other third-party stuff. But yeah, it's always in the average of around 20, even when it's a horrible right-wing person that, will put you in a concentration camp if they could, or tattoo you with AIDS tattoos. It's unbelievable, but it's the same for the mainstream. People will vote, based on taxes or things that people claim they're going to do. We know that Republicans do not care about the deficit. We know these things, right? But the average person is kept so busy or is so self-interested in their own pocketbook that they really don't see the big picture. That the Republicans may cut their taxes in the long term, but they're killing the country. They're in the short term, but they're killing the country in the long term. Like if they were true fiscal conservatives, they would vote for Democrats, who usually fix things. I'm not saying at the local level, but at the federal level, we've seen the cycle of getting into trouble under Republicans that the Democrats fix.
What do you have like a theory about gay Republicans? Do you have any, like when you yeah, go ahead.
I think that it's the vast majority who are out, let's put it that way, about being gay Republicans, because there are many people who vote and don't talk about it. But the ones who talk about it are absolutely coming at it from the quote unquote fiscally conservative point of view. And let me say, the ones who aren't talking about it are the racists. So, we know who votes for Republicans. We know that it's usually the ones who claim they're fiscally conservative or, just want small government, quote unquote, unless it's for them. They don't mind the roads being paved for their businesses and the military taking half the budget. And then you have people who want to keep society back. They want to push it back to 1950s in this, Republican white dream bubble of the suburbs where no black people existed. And there are racists in the LGBTQ community. There are classists. There are all the people that exist in the mainstream exist within the gay community. So they would never admit it, just like the mainstream folks don't admit it when they vote based on race. But they say it, they use other code words. I want to bring us back to the 50s. I want to bring us back to the 1900s, whatever. We know what those mean. They don't want to deal with the reality of where we are now and that those policies directly are connected to the reality we live in now. That those white suburbs that were created after World War II left out the black community. That the black community has been shut out of economic gains. And whenever they did do those gains, the white communities of Tulsa and other places burned them and murdered them. So, for white gay Republicans, they are coming out of the exact same cloth that straight white Republicans are. Meaning they learned in the educational system, they have inherited the privilege of whatever their families are. And I don't doubt that there are true fiscal conservatives within the Republican Party. But they are being dishonest by being in the current Republican Party that is no longer really about fiscal conservatism. It's about getting theirs and screwing everybody else. You know, cutting the taxes for the wealthy and not worrying about a minimum wage that has stayed the same for 2 decades. So, you know, it's hard to put any one party and, you know, paint it with one, wide paint stripe, whatever. But that's my gut, and based on the people I've met. And the gay Republicans I've met, I'm really just appalled and embarrassed by, because they really have a surface analysis of what, of why how they vote, right? If you really scratch and try to really debate with them, there's nothing there. There's almost nothing I can debate them on, because they don't really care that deeply. They really just care about their own pocketbook.
Well put. That was a great riff. All right. Tracy Baim writes a column for The Reader, comes out, I believe, every Monday. You can subscribe to it through the Chicago Reader. It's a newsletter. And some of her essays are pretty provocative. Thinking of the one about bridges, love to get you to talk about that. But before we leave this one theme, let's just talk about the tribute you wrote to Larry Kramer, who's kind of a hero of mine, I have to tell you. And we'd never talked about Larry Kramer. Larry Kramer was just a tell it like it is. He kind of off the rails kind of guy. It was very intimidating, very smart, a brilliant playwright. But in the 1980s, I believe, and I think Tracy, you'll agree with me, that Larry Kramer's unflinching, don't give a damn what you think about me, in your face declaration against the powers that be, to get them to treat AIDS as a serious epidemic, as opposed to just some frivolous little thing that's hurting undesirables, turn the tides on the government's attitude toward AIDS. What's your thoughts about the great Larry Kramer?
Yeah, Larry Kramer, almost as important as what he did to the Anthony Fauci's of the world, because Anthony Fauci was in charge then as well, in challenging them and going after them, no holds barred, he was equally antagonistic and angry at his own community, because it was also being it wasn't being in the emergency mode he felt. New York City was the epicenter. He saw that epicenter happening as it was happening, and he was not afraid to call out people within the gay community that were not treating it seriously. And he wrote angry letters aimed at our own community. He was called, the angriest gay, the angriest fag. He really was a national hero that way, kind of like Danny Sotomayor was in Chicago, who was called the angriest queer. So Larry was unparalleled in his impact within the gay community and within the mainstream. His cultural work through his plays also has a continued impact, like The Normal Heart and other work that he did. So really, there isn't nobody like Larry. He just recently passed away, and he has this epic 2-part book. I've only gotten through the first one, on kind of a reinterpretation of the history of the United States, of America, really the continent that we're on. And it's really his imagining of it. And it's kind of fun to look at it because he's making everything gay, that maybe some of it wasn't gay and some of it was, but maybe we didn't know it. And so anyway, he was an incredible guy. I got to interview him in the early part of this century. And it was one of my scariest interviews I've ever done, because I knew everything about him, but I had never met him in person. And he was so sweet and warm, and I was able to ask him so many different kinds of questions. And he was really patient with me. So yeah, he was an incredible inspiration. And having started covering the community in '84, there were fewer than 100 AIDS cases in Chicago that had cumulative at that point when I started. And of course, it only went up dramatically from there. So we learned a lot from New York, because we were a couple of years behind them in terms of pace. And so it was very important to pay attention to what was happening there, and especially to what Larry Kramer was saying.
So when you interviewed, it was face to face, right?
It was face to face. It was after so the Normal Heart was on Broadway, and the guy from Big Bang Theory was in it, and a few other well-known gay actors were in it. And so we interviewed backstage after the show. So it was really special to have seen the Normal Heart and then to have interviewed him right after. And then, of course, right after it, I took photos of him handing out flyers, about AIDS, and he was still out there protesting. And then we went inside and did the interview.
Well, he told it like it is. He went after Ed Koch. I remember this guy because I followed this stuff. I followed New York politics in the 80s, even though I lived in Chicago. And I never knew if Ed Koch was gay or not, but Larry Kramer just took Ed Koch, former mayor of New York City. He just assumed that Ed Koch was gay, and he just called him out. You're a hypocrite. I mean, he just freaking called him out.
Yeah.
Broke every protocol.
Yeah.
Didn't care.
We were in the middle of a war in a country that didn't know there was a battlefield, and he made sure people knew.
Wow, yeah, that's well put. All right, another essay you wrote had to do with bridges, Chicago bridges, as you use as a metaphor. Explain to people what you were getting at in that essay.
I am so upset that the bridges over our river were used and weaponized against protesters in this town. There have been a couple other times, and people have alerted me that in '68, during the Democratic Convention, they were briefly raised, and during the NATO convention, NATO summit, whatever it was called, under Emmanuel, that they were raised briefly, and in another one or two times they've been raised in history. But the way they were used as, literally a metaphor, like for power and control of the people over the last few months, is outrageous. It is, first of all, it's ineffective as a tool. And second of all, it was lumping everybody into literally one group. That these were bad people coming from one direction of the city to another, that we had to protect something that didn't even exist in one area, but our entire city, was affected. People live everywhere in this city. The city's south side is much larger than the north side. So it was just outrageous to me that those bridges were continuously raised every night, off and on for different periods of time, quote unquote looting. And at the same time, so much looting is happening in this town by the billionaires and millionaires and corporations that is unchecked. They're literally checked, actually. They're given checks from our TIF funds, Ben, that you know more than anybody else, to do that kind of looting. My neighborhood is a big TIF in the South Loop, and it is raiding from the Chicago Public Schools and looting from them every single day. And so I'm just outraged because I know so many of these protesters, whether they condone or don't condone the looting, it's irrelevant, because they're not the ones doing the looting. They shouldn't have to answer for anybody else or speak out about it. I think that there's been some such honest attempts to change the narrative in Chicago from these protesters, from Good Kids Mad Cities and Asada's Daughters and all these other organizations, certainly Black Lives Matter, that they are worth sitting down with. They have proven themselves to care about their communities and do good in their communities, feed their communities, protect their communities. They are so under-resourced. And yet they are seen as the enemy in our own town. So I am really disappointed in the approach. I think that there are not enough people in City Hall that are willing to challenge the status quo and to fight and fight for what's right and fight for these protesters and their voices and their civil rights to be heard and to traverse the roads that their taxes pay for, just like anybody on Michigan Avenue does. In fact, probably most of the owners of Michigan Avenue don't even live in the city. I obviously think that building bridges is better than lifting bridges. So that's why I wrote that publisher's letter.
Did you get a lot of critical feedback? Criticism from the powers that be after that story came out?
Well, what's funny is I know several people who are on our email list. This is the Daily Reader email that forwarded it to the mayor's office. And I said, well, good luck with that. Whenever I write about race or issues that are kind of connected to race, which of course this is, I get about 50% of the emails are like, right on. This is, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And the other 50% are just horrible. And I want to say to myself is, I want to say to these people is, why are you subscribing to the Chicago Reader if you're this racist? Because I'm not saying that they say, they don't agree with me, because that's fine. But most of them say they don't agree with me and why. And then it's full of this vitriol about those people and these people, and we need animals this and animals that. I'm like, why are you subscribing to the Reader? Some of them say, please take me off your list, which we're more than happy to. But many of them don't even say that. They're like continually just challenging me. I'm like, man, I think you might be wanting to subscribe to a different newsletter. Because, I'm not saying you have to agree with me, but if you're going to spout some vile shit at me, your words mean nothing. I know that you're coming at this from a totally irrational point of view.
Yeah, no, I get many of the same responses. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I got to tell you, I get your thoughts on this. I try to respond to anybody that writes to me, but if someone writes something really vile, I just, you know what?
No, exactly. Like I pride myself on responding to anything that seems rational. Like if it's not full of this vitriolic, racist crap, as soon as you use the word animals about a person, I'm not responding to you. But I have had some really good back and forth emails with people that truly do want a dialogue on it, and they thank me for taking the time as publisher to really engage with them, either on the phone or an email. I'm happy to do that at any time. I'm a very hands-on person. I want every reader to feel heard, and if they truly don't understand what I'm saying, because I only have a couple hundred words in these publishers' letters, I'm not really getting to a lot of nuance in them. So I do want them to have a better understanding of where I'm coming from, and I want to hear where they're coming from. And if we don't agree, that's fine, but we can have a dialogue about it if you're willing to be civil in the sense of the language you're using.
Yeah.
If you're not, then it's okay. Just go ahead and spout off. I'm happy to read the email, but I'm not going to respond.
All right, I'm with you on that one. Now, you talked about the sort of the symbolic or attitude that the city was reflecting when they raised the bridges. And now that moves me into a discussion of Trump's tactics. I call it Operation Scare White People. To me, that's what he's trying to do. He's been pounding this drum for over a month now. I'm losing track of time, in maybe 2 months. And clearly, Tracy, he feels that the way he will get to return to the White House is to scare enough white voters in states like Wisconsin and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida into voting for him. He doesn't care about the popular vote. He knows he'll never win the popular vote. He didn't win it last time. He's not going to win it this time. Another one of your essays that you wrote about recently showed a picture of you with Mayor Harold Washington. And we lived through the 1983 campaign, which I think I'm going to write about again because I think it's so relevant. The tactics that the Republicans and some Democrats played to scare white people into voting against Harold Washington almost worked.
Yep.
Harold almost lost to Bernie Epton in 1983. Thank goodness he won. Tracy, do you have the same fear right now that Donald Trump's Operation Scare White People may work in 2020?
I do, because this country's original sin of racism is so powerful that it knows no party. What we saw in 1980 Chicago in a Democratic-controlled city was people like Ed Verdoliak, who were Democrat in name only. They are as bad as Verdoliak was as bad as Trump is now. He was a racist MF. I heard swearing on this show before, but I can't say those things out. But he was a horrible human being in terms of how he ran his aldermanic office as well as the city. And there were many, many, many white ethnic aldermen like him. Some of them still around today, but many of them no longer with us. But that 1980 Chicago scenario showed the racism of the Democratic Party very clearly. And that white scare, that white flight that was still existing, very much could have had, it was that anybody but Harold campaign. I still have some of the stuff that Bernie Epton put out in that campaign. So I think that it can work in combination with voter suppression, not only kicking people off the rolls, but having one voting booth per 100,000 people or something ridiculous, like the gerrymandering crap that's going on in Wisconsin and other states. So it's very likely that they could take it by a combination of many factors. White men are the key. White women are the key. White women could tip it by, lying to their quote unquote husbands and voting against that man in the voting booth. I think in 2016, a lot of people voted for Trump for change and didn't think it'd be this horrible. And they lied and said they voted for another person, but they actually voted for Trump. And this time around, I'm hoping it's the opposite effect, that people claim they're going to vote for Trump, but they go in the booth and say, you know what? I've had enough of this chaos change. I want, a milquetoast white man, but Joe Biden in charge. I'm just afraid that there's so much interference in this election from the Russians and probably even China and the voter suppression that's going on outwardly, that all those things in combination could mean they could steal this election. I don't trust white people in this election at all. The one hope I have is that I would have hoped for a woman at the top of the ticket. But now that we have basically just another old white guy, I'm hoping that will appease some of the independents and some of the, white Democrats that are tired of the chaos. But it's going to have to be an overwhelming victory, and Nate what's his guy, 535.
Nate Silver.
Yeah, Nate Silver was showing yesterday that the defeat's going to have to be 6+ or more percentage for us to feel comfortable, because 1 or 2% or close to what Hillary might have gotten over Trump obviously wasn't enough. So we're going to need 6 or 7, 8% overall. And if these Democrats get in the Senate, in the House, and the White House, they better figure out a way to get rid of this goddamn Electoral College, and they better have backbone that they've never had before to do all the policies that we've always wanted them to do, that they wait and they wait and they wait and they try to compromise. I thought Obama, obviously he only had 2 years out of his 8 where he had control, and they didn't know that. They didn't know the wave that was coming in 2010, and they did get health care passed, thankfully. But had they had another 2 years, imagine what they could have done. So if they get in, not only do they have to do a heck of a lot in the first 2 years, they've got to keep the Senate the next term and the House, or everything they're going to do. Biden will get impeached. I mean, it's just going to go nuts in another 2 years. So they have to win, and they have to win strong, and they have to stay strong. None of this milquetoast compromise stuff. Just get the agenda done and try to get rid of the Electoral College, which I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how that all works. But if they don't get rid of that Electoral College, we're just going to continually be fighting, and every 2 and 4 year cycles, because of the ridiculous white racism that created that institution to begin with.
Well, you're reading my mind. One of my next columns that I'll be writing is how to get rid of the Electoral College.
Great.
This is something I've been thinking a lot about. I talk a lot about on the show. David Ferris, a regular guest on our show, articulated the need to get rid of the Electoral College 2 years ago in a book he wrote, pleading with Democrats to start fighting dirty like Republicans. And the point I always make, Tracy, is that 2 times in this century, the Electoral College has given the election, given the White House to the candidate who lost the popular vote. And the point I make, it happened in 2000 when George W. Bush got to be the victor, in quotes, over Al Gore. If it had been reversed, starting February 1st, 2001, the Republicans would have begun an initiative to get rid of the Electoral College. You know that as well as I do, Tracy.
Yep.
They play to win. There's none of this milquetoast stuff with the Republicans. And so I'm with you. If the Democrats are victorious in this cycle, they have got to start a movement to get rid of the Electoral College, because we're playing on a Republican playing field with the Electoral College.
Yep.
All right, Tracy, before I let you go, one last pitch for my beloved reader where folks can contribute, anything they need to know about the reader, help us stay in existence.
Well, chicagoreader.com, but then also if you want to buy our puzzle or coloring books, we just launched the Chicago Reader Book Club, which has a fantastic lineup of 12 months of authors in Chicago, including Eve Ewing, Natalie Moore, and a whole bunch of others. You can go to store.chicagoreader.com. I'm really excited about it. The authors will be participating in the book club. So you're going to get a chance to be on a Zoom call with these incredible authors, and a whole lot of other ways that you can donate and buy merchandise as a way to keep us going. we're free. We're staying free online and in print. But to do that, we need your support.
All right, very good. Tracy Baim, I should bring you on more often. Great job.
Thank you.
Be talking to you real soon, okay?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, that's great, Tracy Baim. D, before we head out the door, you got any updates for me?
A lot of people were feeling that Tracy Baim interview we just had. My goodness. People on the live stream chat, go Tracy, tell them.
No, she's on fire, man. Tracy, she's on fire. I listen to Tracy, I'm going, yeah, TB.
She was letting it loose there, man. That was awesome. Yeah, we do have some updates here. Let's see here. Well, first off, we want to remind everybody to find us on social media, like us, and all that stuff at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. One thing I should mention here, I keep forgetting to say this, put your name on the email and where you're from. We keep getting emails from just a random telephone number. Say your name and where you're from, all right? That kind of helps, you know? I don't know. Just some random phone number just keeps sending us messages. We'd love to read your message. Who are you? You know what I mean? That'd be great if you'd let us know. We do have some updates here on Joe Biden's visit to Kenosha. A Washington Post reporter noted that Joe Biden, well, first off, Joe Biden he's arrived in Kenosha. And a Washington Post reporter noted that Biden had to reject a handshake from one of the meeting attendees. He's at a meeting right now at a church because of coronavirus concerns. Very awkward, this following story here. Instead, the presidential nominee grabbed the man's arm and complimented his biceps.
That sounds like something I would do, actually.
Here's the tweet from the reporter at the Washington Post. At the start of Biden's meeting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a man extends his hand to shake hands. Can't do that, Biden says, before feeling the man's biceps and exclaiming, "Nice guns."
Sounds like, oh my God, it's embarrassing how much I have in common with Joe Biden. Oh my God, it's so. By the way, it said Washington Post. Is it Mark Garino who wrote that? Does it say?
No, it wasn't Mark Garino.
Come on, Post. Send Garino out there. He's the man.
By the way, you can download our interview with Mark Garino. I'm talking to you, YouTubers and live streamers at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Joe Biden is speaking at a community meeting as we speak in Kenosha, Wisconsin, amid ongoing protest over the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Biden recalled how his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware was devastated by unrest in the 1960s after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. The former vice president then flashed forward 40 years to waiting at Wilmington train station to go to Barack Obama's inauguration. Biden said, quote, "Don't tell me things can't change." Let's see. But the presidential nominee conceded he had been too optimistic about the nation's trajectory, saying, quote, "I made a mistake. I thought you could defeat hate. It only hides." Biden condemned Trump's leadership amid the national reckoning over racism, saying the president, quote, "legitimizes the dark side of human nature. This is not who we are," Biden said.
Yeah, Tracy put it well. I mean, Donald Trump is banking on hate, fear, and prejudice getting him elected. Joe Biden is banking on compassion, love, brotherhood. Really hurts to say this, but hate usually wins in moments like this. And I'm praying, white people, don't fall for it. But I'm afraid, D, because hate usually wins out. You know, people have those like little poison pellets in their heart. And it's like, they don't want to admit it. Dennis was the one. I always said to you, D.
What?
You pointed this out. This is the Dennis theory. I'm going to give you all the credit for it. Like, people lie to pollsters. White people lie to pollsters. Not for Trump. And they go in and vote for him. And because they don't want to admit that they're for this. Fill in the blanks. So it's always an uphill battle when you're appealing to the better instincts of humankind. Appealing to people to do the right thing and not to fall prey to the poison that's out there. So I'm with Joe Biden. I'm voting for Joe Biden. We make fun of Joe Biden. Come on, man. We have a lot of fun with him. But it's an uphill battle. Can love beat hate in the United States of America in 2020 with Donald Trump pounding the hate drum? With the Chicago Tribune using their coverage of Joe Biden, turning an article into essentially a Donald Trump campaign clip? It's an uphill battle. It's always an uphill battle.
And Joe Biden, I'm no campaign strategist, but may I say less arm grabbing and saying nice guns and more put on a Milwaukee Bucks hat. Come on.
Come on, man.
You know what? Yeah, I have telling you, I have a confession. I just am really embarrassed. I that's like a frequent thing I do. Damn, look at the guns on that. Fill in the blank. Because a lot of people in my life who do yoga, they got these really strong arms. So. Anyway, one other embarrassing revelation from Ben Joravsky about how much in common I have with Joe Biden.
Seems to happen every day on the show.
Come on, man. That's not true.
All right, more updates. First off, if you joined us late, well, you missed Ben's maybe fifth best impression. Jack Nicholson. Ben, let's hear it again.
Get your hands in the air, Chief. Get your arms in the air.
That is really good. That is awesome. Took me by surprise. Yeah, you missed that. It's a shame you tuned in late. We got an update on Dr. Anthony Fauci. We haven't talked about Fauci in a while. He's still around. This comes from theguardian.com. Dr. Anthony Fauci said it is not likely that a coronavirus vaccine will be approved and ready for distribution by the end of October. Fauci, the government's top infectious disease expert, has previously said a vaccine could be approved by November or December, but the CEO of Pfizer recently said he should have enough data by the end of October. Fauci acknowledged that all of the timelines mentioned are guesstimates, but he considers it unlikely a vaccine will be ready by October. I actually have some audio of old Fauci. Shout out to CNN for the audio. For the love of God, don't sue us. We're doing well these days. Don't sue us, all right? That's the last thing we need is some lawsuit from CNN. Lawsuit. Don Lemon has sued us. All right, come on. I'm trying to hit play on this thing on my phone. It won't work. Come on. I knew this was
possible as soon as the end of this year. We now have the CEO of Pfizer saying he should have enough data by the end of October. I'm curious, have you seen any data that has you moving up a likely timeline for a workable vaccine?
These are all guesstimates, Jim. I mean, if you look at the projection of the enrollment and the kinds of things you'll need to get a decision about whether the vaccine is safe and effective, most of us project that that's going to be by November, December, by the end of the year. Could this be earlier? Sure. So if someone comes out and says, I'm going to shoot for the possibility that I'll get it by October, you can't argue strongly against that. That's unlikely, not impossible. I think most of the people feel it's going to be November, December, but that does not mean that if there are a number of infections within a particular trial that allows you to make a decision sooner rather than later, it is conceivable that you could have it by October, though I don't think that that's likely.
Okay.
Hey, how about a Fauci impression? You got one of those, Ben?
Yeah, well, I was actually listening to Fauci. I have not really heard a lot of Fauci because, got another embarrassing revelation. I don't watch cable news, so I read newspapers. So I don't hear it, but I like that. He's got that New York thing. He's a little Bernie Sanders. October. I'm gonna get it. October. And then he's got this like a little I kind of like Fauci. October. Okay, D, October. Look, can I just say this to my MAGA listeners out there? And there's thousands of you out there. I'm like, please, guys. Donnie's going to pull a Putin. Remember when Putin hey, I got...
okay, your Putin impression's horrible.
Have I got the vaccine for you? How about that, D? Huh?
That's pretty good.
All right, that's terrible. Even I admit it. Anyway, don't believe him. MAGA's like, oh, no, Ben, we believe anything Donnie tells us. We don't have to wear a mask. Cool. I'm not wearing a mask. Donnie doesn't wear a mask. By the way, the lawyer that Brian Urlacher liked his tweet. I've started following him, Dave. This guy's this right-wing lawyer. And, I was like, hey, open mind, D. Okay, I can open mind. Want to see what the right's up to. So this guy is really out there. And he had this whole thing, like, what a great leader Donald Trump is. They try to keep him from having his speech in the public, but he gave the speech. And the guys think it's a game. Do you see The Rock? I just saw this before we went on the show, D. The Rock has COVID-19. Did you see that?
Yes, sir.
The Rock has. You saw that?
Yeah.
I saw that. I was like shocked.
And his family.
Love The Rock.
His
Anyway,
wife, 4 kids.
The whole family. Yeah, and he's saying wear a mask. So it's like, guys, MAGA, I know you believe anything Donald Trump tells you, but I don't know. If Donnie announces a vaccine in October on the eve of the election, I'm not sure I'm trusting that vaccine. Just saying, okay? I think the doctor who oversaw that is Dr. Vinny Boombots. Ronnie Dangerfield. Dr. Vinny Boombots.
You're on fire today, dude. I just got to say, you are on fire. Did you eat breakfast?
No, actually, I didn't. I overlooked breakfast. I'm so into my phone, my new cell phone, that I just was working with it and overlooked breakfast.
Welcome to the world of a millennial. All right. Radio Doogie weighed in on the live stream chat. MAGA hat wearers think it's a hoax. So why would they even take a vaccine?
Excellent. That is such a good. Why didn't I think of that? Damn you, Radio Doogie. I wish I had thought of that. But you're right. That's MAGA. You're so right. God, I'm going to steal that. I'll be using that one all the time, Radio Doogie. But it's so true.
Got a lawsuit coming from Doogie. Awesome.
A cease and desist coming from Radio Doogie. Ben, stop using my lines without giving me credit for them. But no, that's a great point. MAGA, if you think it's a hoax, you don't have to wear a mask. Why are you getting the vaccine? I don't have an answer for that right now. Let me see. I'll ask John Cass. He's under the table hiding with Will Gazzardi. Johnny, got an answer for that? Negative.
And there went our John Cass interview. All right.
What about Gazzardi?
Well, he blew us off back in the see you later days, so I imagine that wasn't going to happen anyway.
Hold on. D, one more time. Got to announce. I did the flip-flop. Stay in office, Madigan. Don't leave. Just had to do you were mentioning things that people may have missed in the show earlier. There's that flip-flop.
Yeah, that's the impression of flip-flopping. Not the noise flip-flop, but boing. All right, we do have some local news to talk about here. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. Breaking news, Emmett Till's childhood home granted preliminary landmark status. Emmett Till's home on the south side has been granted preliminary landmark status. The commissioners on Chicago Landmarks Thursday granted the prestigious status to the home at 6427 South St. Lawrence Avenue in Woodlawn, where the Chicago teen lived before that fateful trip down south that ended with his brutal lynching on August 28th, 1955.
Should have been landmarked in 1960. I went on a whole riff about this the other day. The city of Chicago is only all too happy to allow so much history from the south and west sides just get plowed over. Just pretend that people never even lived there. So I suppose, Dave, if you're going to do the right thing, I should tip my hat for doing the right thing. But should have been done years ago. Just like the home on Hamlin, the apartment on Hamlin where Dr. King lived when he came to Chicago in 1966, should have been landmarked. And Fred Hampton's home on Monroe and Western, should have been landmarked years and years ago. These are historical sites in Chicago. Very important history that we should not overlook. So finally, the city, I should say nice things when the city does something nice. Good job, city. Here's your biscuit.
I'd be curious to hear your comments on Frank's statement on the live stream chat. He says Richard J. Daley would have never let that happen.
Yeah, which would have never let it be landmarked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Gonna pretend like it didn't exist. Gonna pretend like bigotry and racism doesn't exist. Even though it was a huge motivating factor in Richard J. Daley's mayoralty. You go on and on about how racial attitudes dictated policy in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s And then we pretend it doesn't exist. Then we pretend, oh my God, I'm shocked. There's looting in Chicago. I'm outraged. And yeah, people have their heads in the sand, ostriches. But yeah, Frank, you're absolutely correct. Richard J. Daley is not going to call attention to something like that.
All right. Oh, yeah. Fred, I think I'm with you here. Fred on the live stream chat says, I think Ben smoked some reefer today. He's in fuego. Did you smoke pot today?
Reefer has the exact opposite effect on me. You do not want me to do a show having smoked reefer, ladies and gentlemen. The show will go like this. I will now do an imitation of me doing a show on reefer. Ready, D? Hold on. Drink the water. Here we go. Oh man. D.
Oh wow, you just doing the impression of you, Stone, is having me worried people are tuning out. So don't ever get high before a show.
What's that guy's name, man? You know, the guy, man. Come on, D. Oh shit.
Okay,
God,
watch your mouth.
Take a break.
Watch your mouth. All right, and one more Chicago update here. This is an update on Mayor Lightfoot's 2021 budget plan. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Whoa Man Spielman. Check out the Fran Spielman Show, Chicago Sun-Times, and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. City's proposed 2021 budget will erase a $1.2 billion shortfall. And without more federal help, this is what the top mayoral aide says here. Chief Financial Officer Ginny Hang and Budget Director Susie Park said a property tax increase, quote, is last on the list, but must remain on the table because it is the most broad-based and reliable source of revenue. Sorry, homeowners. Here's the quote from Huang, quote, increasing taxes in this difficult economic environment does not create a stimulative environment, but we also have to balance that with the fact that we have to make revenues match expenses and have a balanced budget.
First of all, taxes are going up, so I hate to break it to you folks. They go up every year because of the TIFs. That's automatic. The city will never reveal that, but it's automatic. Secondly, that whole thing about taxes not being stimulative, you're feeding into the Republican playbook there, and we're running out of time. Don't have a lot of time to go into it, but in fact, it depends on how you spend the taxes. They can be incredibly stimulative. So this is what Tracy Baim was saying when Democrats act like Republicans. They talk those Republican talking points. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, you're a Democrat, right? You're not a Republican. So if you spend property tax dollars, let's say on pensions for geezers like myself who live in Chicago, and they take those money and they go buy groceries, that's stimulative. How come you call it stimulative when you give the money to Sterling Bay to build a humongous development, Lincoln Yards, that no one needs? How come that's stimulative? But when you give it to Geezer Joe to go buy groceries, that's not stimulative. Please explain that to me, city officials. So that's that Republican stuff. I am so sick of Democrats talking Republicanism.
Don't bait us.
Don't bait her.
I haven't heard that one in a while. Who was that one too, D? That was don't bait. Oh, that was the question. She threw Kim Foxx under the bus. So some reporter said, how about this for a memory, D? You can tell I wasn't smoking reefer today. I pulled this one out. She threw Kim Foxx under the bus, drove over the bus. Some reporter goes, so you're driving the bus over Kim Foxx right now. Don't bait us. What else you got for me, young man?
Well, I think that's about it, other than this here.
I won't just turn the car around. I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to kick you out, and I'm going to make you walk home.
Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. Send us an email, BennyJShow@gmail.com, and you can leave us a voicemail. We have a phone number, 708-658-4788. That number again, 708-658-4788. Leave us a voicemail. We'd love to play it on the program.
I want to thank Tracy Baim, TB, Tracy Baim, for doing an outstanding job coming on the show from my beloved Chicago reader. She really knocked the ball out of the park. We're going to bring her back. And, of course, I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom the show would be possible. And it's Tracy Baim, Lori Lightfoot, Fran Spielman, and Michael Girardi will all tell you back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.